Welcome back, everyone, to Moving Offline. Today, we have the founders of the Balance Phone. We have Albert and Carlos, and they're going to be guiding us through one of the solutions that they have introduced so far to the European market, but hopefully very soon it'll be introduced to more markets. We're really excited about what they're building. They're building a phone that only has the essentials without any distractions. And we're going to talk about how it works and who is it for. So, Carlos and Albert, thank you very much for being here on the podcast. Please let us know a little bit more about Balance Phone, what it stands for, and introduce a little bit more about yourselves.
Hello, Jose. Thank you. To tell you a bit, really summarized what's Balance Phone. At some point, we both realized we were spending too much time on our phones. We were kind of worried that it was taking up too much of our lives, and we wanted to find a solution. We tried the obvious. We tried deleting Instagram, deleting Twitter, Netflix, all these kind of apps that we thought were taking away our time. We saw that this was not an effective solution because for some reason or another, we ended up coming back to these apps again, say 1 week, 2 weeks after deleting them. Somehow you go back on the loop. And then we tried limiting ourselves with some screen time apps. Again, we saw it was too easy to bypass and we couldn't rely on our own self limits, let's say. And that's when we decided to create Balance Phone. That's when we decided to design the phone that we wanted for ourselves. We designed a phone that has a really minimalistic UI. It's a black and white list with all the apps, no colors, no notifications in that sense. And we block all addictive content. So in our phone, we only allow all those apps that are in Play Store that we think or we see that add value to our daily lives. And we restrict all those apps that are made or optimized for the user to spend as much time as possible in those. In the end, it's 5 categories that we block. So it's social media, it's streaming platforms, games, pornography, and betting. This is what is considered as addictive content, and this is what cannot be accessed on a Balance Phone. Everything else, food delivery, banking, messaging, of course, any kind of app that you can imagine outside of these categories is available. And we started trying it out. We saw that it really liberated us from this problem that we were having. And that's a bit how it all started.
And maybe to add here something, before starting this product, we tried to switch to a dumb phone, basically to an old Nokia. And we saw, actually, we just last 2 days with the Nokia because we need WhatsApp, we need Google Maps, we need Spotify, and we need all these functional apps that really bring value to our day to day. And with this context and with this situation in mind, we basically thought, okay, let's take the best out of these two words, like the simplicity from the dumb phone, the intentionality that you only use the dumb phone when you really need it. And from the other side, we also take all the functionality and the value that smartphones bring to our day to day, and that we believe that obviously it's a tool that we need to live in our day to day. And with this context in mind, and having tried like both solutions, we said, okay, let's mix these two words and let's create this solution that prioritizes functionality and that blocks entertainment.
You know, something that comes to mind as you are helping me understand what the Balance Phone is that it is a middle ground phone. It's a transition device. That's what I call them. It's a device that has certain functions, but it blocks the distractions in life. So it gives you only tools that are helpful for your everyday, but at the same time, it blocks you from accessing anything that can be harmful. Now, there are a lot of concepts out there that are similar to the Balance Phone. For example, there are some parental controls in certain smartphones. There are phones like yours here in the United States, like the Wise phone. And what they do is the same. They block access to certain apps, but they allow you to use other ones. So I want to understand, who is this for? who is this balance phone targeted to? Who can it be helpful? And what are some of the apps that you will never allow on this phone so that it remains helpful to a lot of people?
I think there's two main targets that really fit with our product. As I said before, this first started as a phone that we wanted for ourselves. We could consider ourselves digital minimalists, or that's the tag that we put. But in the end, it's people who are conscious about their digital use and how they spend time, and they want to reduce that. And that's how it all started. It's true that at some point, at least in Europe, there's a big movement on teenagers and screens. We saw a lot of parents coming to us saying, "This is exactly the phone that I would like my kid to have as a first phone. It allows me to give him the independence that he needs at this age, but it kind of protects him from all this harmful content," as you were saying before. I think the problem with parental controls, at least that's what we learned speaking with a lot of parents, is that they are too intrusive, first of all. So parents normally have access to everything that happens on the device. And I think at some age, it's good that children also has this freedom of exploring technology as long as you know it's safe and it's in a controlled environment. And I think they are too intrusive. Also, they are too difficult for parents to configure. It keeps alive this discussion between the children and the parents saying, please allow me more time on it. Please allow me to have Instagram. It's a constant fight that with our product, let's say, we eliminate in that sense because the phone is as it is. It's similar to what the feeling is similar to a dumb phone saying, this phone is like this and it can do these things, no more than that. And there's no discussion there. So there's no fight between parent and children. And then last one is that they are fairly easy to bypass, at least generally. Many parental controls, they are pretty easy to bypass these restrictions. So they ended up not being effective.
Yeah, and maybe to add here something, as Carlos said, I would say that parents, one thing that they struggle is that when they set up the parental control apps, usually we've seen that they don't know what's harmful or what can be potentially dangerous for their kids. And for example, they don't know which games are the ones that are trendy or which even social media platforms are emerging. And in our case, our solution, it's more like a plug and play solution. So we are the ones that ensure that our environment is safe and that we don't expose kids to harmful content, both in apps and in websites. And I think that this is what makes our product more safe in this sense, or even more easy to install. And I think that's why lots of parents came to us with this preoccupation.
So one thing that I know about parents and something that they enjoy is to understand that the product that they give to their children is safe, but also it's to align with a company that has the same values as them. So how do you control, and this is more of a technical question, how do you control which apps are allowed on the phone and which apps are not? Is it all software? Because with a dumb phone, right? When you have a dumb phone, like a flip phone, you don't have apps. You have what it comes with. But what it sounds like is that the balance phone, it has an expanding or reducing store. So what are some of the principles and ideas that guide your decision making in order to allow this app and say this is safe, or to say no, this is not safe and we're not going to allow it because it's too distracting and it's too dangerous, whether it is for adults or children?
Really good question. And I would say that it's the most difficult challenge that we've had in our project, and especially in our product. To your question, we have Play Store. So we follow a blacklist approach, and differently from other solutions that have a whitelist approach, they just allow certain apps. In our case, we have a blacklist approach, and we block in two different channels. First channel would be apps, and we block all apps that are categorized in social entertainment, streaming services, games, and betting, and adult content. So all the apps that are categorized in these categories are blocked. But one thing that we've seen, and one thing that it's very important for us, is that we don't want to sacrifice anything in our day-to-day. And this happens by, for example, if I need to cut my hair, or if I need to pay with my local bank, or if I need to go to my co-working, it's probably that I will need a certain and very local and specific app that we don't want to sacrifice, or we don't want people to not be able to use this. And that's why we decided to go with this blacklist approach instead of a whitelist approach. But to your question, apps, we block them by category, these categories that I mentioned. And websites, we leverage an API that basically uses AI to recognize the content of a certain URL. And we block the same categories that I mentioned: pornography, games, social media, betting, and streaming. And we block them with a blacklist approach as well. The logic behind what to block and what not to block, which is actually our main challenge, we followed a logic in which everything that has no endpoint, or every app that has no endpoint, is blocked. And this is, as Carlos said, this translates into social media, games, streaming services, and then we have the obvious addictive categories, which are betting and pornography. But for example, if you open Amazon or if you open Google Maps, you have an endpoint. When you get to your home, you don't need Google Maps anymore. When you buy whatever you want to buy in Amazon, you don't need it anymore. This is designed to have an endpoint, but there are certain apps that do not have an endpoint, and we follow this logic to block them.
And I think you said something very interesting, Jose, in your question. You were saying how parents tend to align with a company that share the same values as them. And I think the same happens with digital minimalists. And in the end, we want to, or at least we always say, it's not like social media is bad. We are not anti-tech somehow. It's simply that we are conscious on how we use technology. We realized having these services on our phones is taking up too much of our lives. It's not helping us live the way that we intend to, which is creating meaningful connections, enjoying our days, being more present in our offline world, let's say. But it's not like we go against social media. I think we can all say social media has brought really interesting things, at least in my life for sure. We simply consume those on other devices more intentionally, saying, okay, I have 30 minutes now. I want to spend 30 minutes looking at Twitter or Instagram, whatever, to see what my friends are doing. But I'm not having it on my phone. I'm not being constantly, my attention is not being constantly awakened by this. And I think this is also, there's a group of digital minimalists who maybe don't want to be so radical in their switch. At least it's what we experienced, going to a dumb phone that is maybe too limiting for our daily lives. And that's where we try to find this proper balance. That's where the name comes from, actually. But between the online and offline world, basically.
So something that came to my mind was this idea of you are creating this balance phone, you're bringing this to market. And something that just comes to my thinking is, in your opinion, why are big companies not providing this solution? They could make the iPhone more of a balance phone. They could make the Samsung Galaxy S25 or whatever one it is now, they could make it more restricted according to the preferences of users. But why do you think that these big tech companies are not interested in helping the community?
I would say first, I'm pretty sure that there's a strong correlation between more screen time and more revenue. And in some cases, like Google, for example, they have YouTube, which is a clear example of this. And also, one other thing that I think is relevant, I think that the power that these companies have, especially not the hardware providers or not the hardware manufacturers, but especially Instagram, Meta, YouTube, or these companies, they have too much power that I think that if Apple, Samsung, Google, or these hardware companies would consider to offer a solution like ours, I'm not kidding that maybe this would be a third world war. in terms of power, and maybe it's something that it's not interesting for them. But I don't know. This is my opinion, and I don't know why this happens.
I don't have an answer neither. The thing is, when you look at these companies, the only thing that we see is that the hardware that they are developing is every time more focused in to more consumption. So it's bigger screens, bigger batteries for more use of time, um, 3 cameras than 4 cameras. I mean, everything is more focused on more consumption, more. And what we're trying to do is kind of dial it down and say, okay, let's really be conscious on what makes sense for us, what really brings value to us, and what we can spare to make our lives better.
I appreciate that. And I think that it's very helpful because it allows me to understand that you're trying to hear what people need and allow what makes sense. So your logic is if it has an endpoint, it's better than if it's an infinite feed. If it's an infinite feed, we're going to block it. Now, I do want to ask two more questions. They're kind of related, but what if an app is miscategorized? So, for example, there is a social media app and it's under the category of banking for some reason, right? How do you deal with that? And also, how have you seen people regain time? And what is the average user of your phone decreasing their screen time by?
Answering the first one, that's basically our main challenge right now. There are apps that are miscategorized, even more websites actually. I think we are very, at least we're very proud that we are super reliable, more than what we would expect at the beginning. But that's where the magic happens, and that's where users help us improve the product. They give us feedback when they think something is under when something is miscategorized basically, and we are very reactive that we can immediately let's say unblock it or block it. It goes both ways. And I think also that's kind of the beauty of the product. It's we build it together, let's say, somehow, and we rely a lot on our users to improve it every day.
And to your second question, Jose, I checked it this morning, and our average screen time from all the users that bought the balance phone is 1 hour and 23 minutes per day, which I would say this is the metric that we're most proud of. And actually, it's our North Star metric because our mission is 100% on giving back time to our users. And I think that I checked 2 weeks ago that the average screen time here in Spain is 5 hours per day, and as a society. So this is a bit more than 3 hours per day that we give back to users. So yeah, by far this is the metric that we're most proud of.
That sounds excellent. I think if people are getting back about 3 hours of their day, it's just helpful. You know, they can do more things, even if they choose to watch a movie or look at the television or talk with a friend, whatever it is that they want to do. It's not something that they are constantly looking at their phone, but living life and having more experiences. And I think that's very positive. And I'm really happy that this product has been helpful to people, especially in Europe right now. Thank you guys for coming in for this short podcast. If you are listening to this and you want to listen to their beautiful voices in Spanish, we are going to be recording this also in Spanish, and there will be a Spanish channel. I don't know how I'm going to do that on the podcast, but I'll probably post 2 episodes pretty quickly. And if you want to listen to this interview in Spanish, it's also available. Or if you want to send it to a friend that only speaks Spanish or that mainly speaks Spanish, we're also going to be doing this short interview with them in Spanish. I'm going to give you guys a final word, whatever you guys want to say to the audience, and how to find you in the internet.
Super. No, I would just want to say thank you for inviting us. Thank you for all the work that you've done in the community. I think it's really valuable, and it helps people realize that, at least in my opinion, there is a better way to live, and it's not glued to a screen, and giving us the space to explain everyone that we exist and that we're doing what we're doing. They can find us in our website. It's www.thebalancephone.com, and it will be available soon in other markets, not only in Europe.
Yeah, and maybe to add something is what Carlos just said. And also one thing that I want to mention, also thanks Jose for making the time. And thanks especially for all the resources that you create, that you share with the community. I think that the most beautiful thing about this project is that obviously we are the ones deciding in which direction the project wants to go, but it's really a community first project. And it is something that we repeat ourselves a lot because we believe that there's a movement that is emerging, and actually it's a very strong one. And here, at least in Europe, we are aware that we have a responsibility because we want to lead this movement product wise. But for us, the most beautiful part of this project is to build this with the community, both product and even communication wise. So thanks for sharing and thanks for creating this community. So thanks for this, Jose.
That was Albert and Carlos from The Balanced Phone. If you want to check out their product and their ideas, they will be linked in the description below. And again, this is also available in the feed as a Spanish podcast. I think this will be our first Spanish podcast, but I think it's going to be exciting, especially as the audience grows and as more people get to check out their project. One thing that I would say that I like about their phone so far, of course, things can change, but as of right now, is a one-time payment. And that's something that you don't see nowadays a lot because people just want subscriptions again and again. But this is quite interesting, and I'm excited to see how it continues flourishing. Again, thanks for supporting Moving Offline. There are links to support as well in the description, and we appreciate your listenership. See you next time in the podcast.